So yeah, no, we should be live now. So hi everyone, and welcome to the seventh workshop in our Global Groove Electronic Music Journalism workshop program, hosted by Groove Magazine in collaboration with the Goethe Institute. We will meet three more times this week between 1 p.m. CEST and around 3 p.m. CEST to discuss some fundamental ethical, social, and cultural issues that come with music journalism as a whole. And again, we will also monitor the YouTube live chat and ask questions on your behalf, should you have them. And if you have any comments, any feedback, just leave us a shout and we'll take care of it. That's my colleague Laura Aha, we will also both host one workshop respectively in the remaining time before we will work with our 10 participants together to publish some articles later this autumn in November, I think, on the Groove homepage. So today's workshop is focusing on social media, which is, of course, like a very crucial aspect of music journalism in this day and age. And social media have had a great impact on music reporting in terms of how stories are being written and also distributed, of course, and there's many advantages and disadvantages, but I think something that we can all agree on is they're inescapable. And so today I'm very excited to have Cristina Plett over. Cristina first joined Groove in 2016 as an intern and quickly became very invaluable to the magazine thanks to her vast knowledge, her curiosity, her passion, and also her professionalism. She's a DJ as well. She had a project called Track by Day, with which she highlighted female and non-binary and trans artists in the electronic music world. And worked as a freelancer for a few years before finally joining Groove as an editor in early 2019, which I was very delighted to hear. And sadly, however, though, after half a year, I think, left the magazine again, for good reasons, though, because she got on board with the Deutsche Journalistenschule, the German School for Journalists, and in that role is now currently interning in the economics department of Zeit, one of the biggest dailies in Germany. And she took over social media duties at Groove for a time and really changed the face of the whole magazine in that time, and really knows what she'll be talking about. She's also the only person I know who has a TikTok account, and that probably means that I'm old, but also I think it speaks for her and her, knowledge on the subject. And I'm very excited to hear what she has to say. Hi, Cristina. Thank you.
Hello. Thanks for the nice introduction. I'm gonna share my screen now to show you my presentation. I think Christopher already said everything about me. I'm generally very interested in social media, and that's also why I have TikTok, just to see what it is. So I'm gonna explain to you a bit something about social media and journalism, especially like drawing from my experience at Groove and from my experience in my studies in communications. But first of all, can you everybody see the presentation? Yes, good. So first of all, I wanna start or ask you what social media platforms you use, and if you have reported or done journalism via social media, just to have a bit of a picture. Maybe you can write it in the chat. So I'm not sure if I see the chat now. There. Cool. So the classics: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, WhatsApp, think it's interesting if you do put WhatsApp as a social media thing or not. I would put it there, but I think it's up to discussion. Ah, Ilgas doesn't use Twitter. Interesting. Just only active on Instagram. It's interesting tendency. Think has everybody written now? Twitter, Instagram. Oh, no Facebook. Wow. Okay, well, I think that's an interesting picture because we see obviously the classics are Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. But it's interesting that some of you don't have Twitter or don't have Facebook or rarely use Facebook. We also go into the Facebook thing later on. I think, how can I close the chat now? Sorry. Ah, there. Okay. No. Sorry. Okay, so this is what we're going to talk about. We're going to start with a hypothesis that's like relevant for every aspect, I think, and then go on and talk about magazines and social media, audience and social media, journalists and social media, and then open a discussion. But if you have questions in between, I think it's cool if you just ask them because sometimes at the end you kind of forget what you wanted to ask even. So yeah, my hypothesis is social media enable anyone to communicate with the public. Everyone can speak to an audience no matter how big or small that audience is. I mean, that's not a really new hypothesis. I think communication scholars have probably been repeating it since like the internet or blogs became a major thing. But I think it's safe to say that social media have made the process of communicating to an audience of like an unknown size a lot easier from a technological viewpoint. And that has a lot of complicated implications, which we will look at now. But first we go a bit like to the past, like pre-internet mass media. I think it was traditional like journalists were one of the few groups in society that had access to a broad audience, and via the magazines they wrote for a platform to speak on. And the communication was like quite unidirectional. You had like these important actors with who had reach, and then the broad audience who could just take in the communications. Now that obviously has changed. This graphic is funny, but I think it represents kind of how the audience has dissolved. Like normal people can become influencers or bloggers, become kind of journalists. They also can like talk to journalists, and it's just, especially technologically, a lot easier. At the same time, music journalism has struggled or has lost some of its influence. And we have here some journalistic publications that have closed down. Raveline was important, like one of the German techno magazines. Debug as well. NME closed last year or 2 years ago, I think. Intro was a German music magazine. Groove closed its print issue. Specs closed its print issue, and now kind of its online issue. Mixmag now closed its print issue because of COVID-19. Q as well. And I mean, that's just some examples. Why did they go? I guess that's like quite a big issue. I just want to get into some aspects that maybe made like music journalism struggle. One is that journalism was available for free on the internet. That made like the dependence of advertising income even bigger because subscriptions declined, or like you didn't buy your magazine at the store. Then advertising budgets shifted away from magazines and instead to Google and Facebook. And now the pandemic has made all news outlets, no matter how niche or big or small, lose advertising revenue, but obviously music magazines who were already struggling financially before COVID-19 were the first to shut. But there's an upside, or I always try to be optimistic, because in theory, obviously, niche outlets on the internet can reach a niche audience from all over the world. I mean, if we're all interested in electronic music, we can like read something from everywhere. And potentially you have a bigger audience, not just the scene in Berlin or in Germany or wherever you are. I think it's crucial, or it's important to know that the website of a magazine is the presence to reach all those people, or like the presence where people can reach the journalism, but it's not the entry point for readers, because the entry point is social media. We saw that with our stats at Groove magazine, especially in Google Analytics, which I guess you all know, but I recommend you get it if you don't have it, if you own a site. And also like science says it, or research. Here the digital news report from the University of Oxford shows that the gateway for people aged 18 to 24 to news is social media. And even for older generations, like a quarter of them, social media is like their main gateway to news. So I hope that now I've made it like clear that establishing and maintaining a presence on social media is necessary and important for music magazines if they want to reach people. And yeah, now I'm going to talk about a bit how you can do that, or like ways how I did it at Groove. Yeah, first I'd say my slide is not moving, sorry. No. I think it's important that you like make a plan, or like plan ahead. When I started at Groove, at first I looked at the stats, because I wanted to know like who is the audience and where is the audience. With where I mean like not only geographically, but mainly what platforms do they use, which is also why I asked you at the beginning. And I knew, for example, that Facebook generated a lot of traffic on the site. We saw that from like Google Analytics, but also like the likes and comments on Facebook. But I also had my gut feeling and the research from the digital news report that said like that, especially in the younger generation, Facebook news use was declining. And I mean, some of you said it as well. And I also here is an example of Instagram stats that's not from Groove, it's from another music-related site I run. But you see the male audience is bigger than the female audience. But at the stats at Groove, I think there was an interesting thing that especially in younger audiences, the ratio of females was higher than in older audiences. And generally the audience on Facebook was older, so I thought, okay, maybe it's good like to invest or try something on Instagram. So you try to like reach newer audiences, younger and more female audiences. Here on you can also on Instagram see like when your audience is active, which is maybe relevant for posting. But yeah, so I try to lay focus on Instagram. And with that comes the question, what resources do you have? Because I had knew a bit of Photoshop, so I thought, okay, I can do something with images. Maybe if somebody of our Groove team was very well with filming or cutting, we would have laid a focus on YouTube. But yeah, you need maybe people that have those skills, and generally people that have time. So it's important to like know what your resources are. And with that also comes the importance of scheduling, because if you have scarce resources, I think it's even more important that you plan ahead. I usually looked at, when I posted on Instagram, on Facebook, I looked at what we will publish this week, so I knew, okay, what could I do with that? and that it didn't happen on the day that I was not in the office or something. And with scheduling also comes the importance of posting consistently, because I think it's better if you post like 3 times in 1 week than 2 weeks nothing and 3 times in 1 day. Just that you show a presence and are kind of there. Just gonna have a bit of water. So yeah, if you have a plan or a schedule for the week, then it's maybe easier to post consistently. Then I also think it's important that you post diversely in different ways, like visually, but also with the types of people you show and the types of formats and content you show. Here is an example from the Groove Instagram side, and I'm not trying to bash anyone, but you see that the visual variety I think is there, like the feed looks nice, but you also see that there's like a lot of white, probably German men, which I mean has to do with issues in techno music generally, but it's something that maybe you should look out for. Yeah, then different types of content. So now I'm gonna like show different types of posts that you could do, or that I did. I mean, in music, you can always show artists. Here's Ricardo Villalobos on his birthday. Then you can always show pictures of clubs or festivals if they are happening. And then record covers. And I mean, I think that already has kind of a bit of variety that you, as a music magazine, you can use. But then there's also, this is an example from like the Tagesschau, the main German news outlet. And I mean, maybe it's hard to compare to music journalism, but I think it's something you could also do. It shows like a news or a headline and then a bit of detail, and in the caption the main news. And like as a reader, you get the content from that itself, which I think is also an important distinction you have to have. Do you want to make like content for people to consume on that platform only, or do you want to use it as a bridge for people to come on your website? I think both is important, but it's, yeah, it just has difficult implications. I mean, you maybe don't want to like only make content for Instagram because you don't want to like only serve Facebook Inc. But only using your social media account as a bridge to a website maybe is also boring for the followers or readers. Here is another type of like content for social media, like an infographic from Electronic Beats. There also comes again the question of resources, because obviously if you don't have an illustrator, that's a bit harder to do. Here is something that I did, or I introduced the classic like quotey thing. Yeah, just like used a catchy quote for it like to consume or use on the site, on Instagram, on the platform, but then also linked like as a bridge. And I just learned how to use Photoshop, so I was like, cool, I can do something with that skill. But if you don't have Photoshop, there are also like lots of, I think, mobile apps you can do nice infographics with or everything. I also like related with that one. I introduced that because now comes the format question. Now we only talked about posts in the feed, but Instagram stories are obviously also like a different type of format. I don't know if they're more important. I think it depends. You can also look at the stats there. And here I try to like tell kind of a bit of a story, but not too much. It was more kind of a bridge about an interview we did with Dina Abdel Wahed. It was like, here she released her debut album. Then I think that was an extra from the teaser, those 3 things. And then it's just, here you can read how she did it, or like how she emancipated herself. Yeah, I mean, it's quite simple, and I think it's also easier even to do if you just do that in the Instagram app, but I didn't. And I think that Instagram stories are great for, I think, is live reporting. Wait, no, here. I mean that, and live reporting is obviously something that you can use very well in music journalism, because you're like there. I mean, if there is not COVID-19, there is something happening where there's the music is like happening, people are there, and yeah, you can like show quite a lot of things. So here I have two examples. One, I hope it works now that I show you, is from a protest in Berlin, like for climate and raving, kind of. Laura did it. I think it was quite cool because that was a protest, no future, no dance floor. It was like a rave protest together with a climate strike last September. Okay, this is now in German, but I think it's Laura here does very well. But I think it's quite important. She like says what's happening. It's like the rave demo from by Reclaim Club Culture at the Potsdamer Platz. It's like, okay, we know where she is, what she's doing there. We have an image, like the setting is set. Yeah, here's kind of scenery. I think I was there with her. It took quite a lot of time to see. Here is like kind of content, or I think makes it interesting. She shows that there is an awareness team, like looking out for safety of people. Then
no future, no dance floor, no planet B. Reclaim the streets.
Yeah, then the awareness team says something, or like there's an interview element, and we see, which I think was very smart, that here Laura, I think, used the microphone from her headphone to improve the sound quality. And it's kind of more scenery, taking people. Again, I mean, obviously there was an event where you like could see quite well. Do you hear me? Yeah. Where there was something to see, and in rave context, I mean, it's always important to like ask people for permission, and maybe at a rave people don't want to be filmed. Yeah, then here Laura provides us some facts that there were between 100,000 and 270,000 people. Like more images. I think it's kind of like it's like it just shows what happened there. It's like a report but live and on Instagram. Okay, let's start. That's a kind of part. And here now the protest ends, and I think it's kind of time for wrapping up. It's like a quote from the end of the protest, and this is just like an image to end the reporting. Yeah, how do I... So I think it's a very good example of... God, how do I go back now? Yeah. It's just a good example of what you can do with Instagram live reporting. Here is also another example that I did at a festival. We can maybe have a look. It was in the Ukraine, so I also tried to like do this image of setting. We're in Kiev. It's this bank holiday, and then we're on site at the festival. Yeah, just like the music, which you can always show, but I mean, I think only showing that is maybe boring. But again, stating like who's playing and where. Yeah, I'm not gonna like go into the whole. I didn't want to go into the whole example of this. No. Sorry. Here. Good. Yeah, because I think that was kind of a bit boring. In the overall, you can look at it at the group side, but I think Laura did it a lot better, showing the variety and showing different things. And now, yeah, and I think it's important to like try to give the reporting a structure with like start and different types of information. And I've shown you that example, so we've looked at that so thoroughly because that's the task I was talking about in the beginning. Wrong side. I want you to do a little Instagram story reporting, or just like a mock Instagram story reporting with at least like 5 slides, using a mixture of images, text, and video. You can also speak directly to the camera if you like. We didn't show that, but it's also possible, like show yourself as a reporter. And as it's only an example, I just want you to, I don't know, maybe like where you're right now, talk about I'm at home, it's that time of the day, and here is a cool pen I have or something. It's just total random, just to like, the topic can be totally random, just to like try and use this format. And I would like you to do that now, maybe in like 15 or 20 minutes. And when you're done, upload it to an Instagram account that I'm going to post the login data in the chat so that it's not public. But I'm just going to look at it later and then maybe give you a feedback. Yeah. So I'd say, where is the chat so I can close? Here. So I'd say just, yeah, we have to like in 50 minutes, and you can turn off your camera if you like, and then we can come back. And if you have any questions, just ask them in the chat or like normal.
Okay, thank you so far, Cristina. So yeah, I guess our participants will now do that. Yes, while we take a break.
Mm, I have a question. If we all upload to the same account, doesn't it get mixed, all of those slides?
What? Sorry.
I mean, I asked if we all upload to the same account,
Mm-hmm.
uh, wouldn't the slides get mixed in between, like between my story?
Uh,
We'll do it as a post, not as a story, right?
well, however you want. I thought more of a story, but I thought in the thing main thing it gets mixed up, but then I wanted to like group them into highlights, so that it's together. You know,
Okay,
that
okay.
like in the
I
but
think you can upload stories as a, mhm,
but you can also
like
post
more than one
from
slides.
however you want.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
So, hi. I think the 15 minutes are up. I just wanted to ask like how far you are. I saw already that Aman posted kind of funny story. Okay, and yeah, maybe if everybody of you knows how to do story highlights, if you could just like group your story into a highlight with your name, that would be great. Otherwise, I would try to do it. And I think it's the easiest if I like send you feedback after the workshop. Yeah, but I think it's looking quite good already. But we'll wait just a few more minutes. I saw a question from Fadi here. Yeah, it is possible if you've already done that. I think that's cool. So just for everyone, the pickle me shop by Aman.
I mean, that's not too random, right?
No,
I mean, I see everybody's putting up like serious stories, and I just found whatever was closest to me.
no, that's just this is just how I imagined it to be. But also like how it is grouped in the highlights. It's just like Oh wait, if you just while we wait, is it okay if I show it to the screen for you?
Yeah, definitely.
Because he just showed us something about the pickle. So it's just the first slide shows what happened, and it shows kind of like the pickle situation, and it's like the headline: accidental drop of pickle spoon resulted in mismatched pickle assembly. Then there is a bit of more story content, like explaining the background, what happened. He dropped the spoon of the pickle, and he had just like to put another one. And now there's a video, just like scenery, showing the wrong spoon because it's not red, it's silver. And then that's like the story, or like the story unfolds. The original spoon is drying up. Then there's a bit more background information. In Indian culture, pickles are fermented in oil, and introduction of moisture is a big problem. So you can only use like properly dried spoons. And then there's like the final slide, which is, again, you kind of see that it's the end because it's a similar image to the first slide. And it's kind of the happy end. The original spoon has been restored. And I think it's a great example of like, yeah, Instagram storytelling. It's also the first one that was finished, so that's why I showed it. Gio's also ready. I haven't looked at the other ones yet, but how is it going with the uploading? Oh. It's really cool, like, to see where everybody is. Geo has another element that I forgot, but that we will talk about now. There's like asking the audience, or like asking the audience for participation, what's been burning in your ears lately. And that's an interesting topic of, like, I think, how you communicate with the audience, how you interact with them, what you do then with the replies that you get. But first and foremost, I think Instagram has good tools to incorporate the audience. It has like the survey tool, the one where you can introduce things, a chat tool, yeah. Oh, sorry. So is I think I now see like highlights of 4 people. Is the rest still doing something, or should we just go on? Because I see here, Fadi, is it okay if I show an extract of your story? Okay. Okay, cool. Because he did what I also showed, or he like re-uploaded something he did at a festival. And I think it's cool. I guess you probably write for Noise. He also writes Noise Live, that they're showing stuff. Also uses a geolocation, tags everybody. Tagging is also like, if you tag artists, it's good, I think, because some will repost it. I mean, you don't want to like be too dependent on that or anything, or like be too likable, but it's generally not bad if like people have a lot of reach, repost your stuff. So yeah, that's like the classic festival reporting. And now I think we are nearly done, right? Or I will just try and go on, because my idea is like to give a kind of a deeper feedback written then in the end via email, and you can like see, obviously you who uploaded can see what the others did and we can see it, so maybe we can like learn from each other. But yeah, so I just go on. Can everybody see my screen and everything? Yes. Okay. Because what applies to Instagram stories, because Christopher mentioned TikTok in the beginning, I think it's also easily applicable to TikTok, or I think TikTok is even better. I've just used it to like try out what you can do with it, and you could like produce kind of mini documentaries. I think it's quite amazing what you can do to it, but the principle of storytelling, I think, is the same. So it doesn't differ that much from Instagram stories. And I mean, if you want to use it, depends on the questions I asked in the beginning, like where is your audience and who is your audience. Maybe if you want to reach Gen Z, or yeah, people younger than me, it's quite recommendable. Maybe it's not. It depends. I mean, also it depends on where TikTok is going. But another great thing about TikTok is that the algorithm is not, or it's kind of, how do you say it in English? It is more forgiving, because I, who have 8 followers on TikTok, got like 200 views for a random video because I just used the hashtags of the challenge. So you can go like viral without having a big basis of followers or something to build on. But yeah, that was all visual. But on Twitter and Facebook, obviously, it's more about links and words. I think we at Groove used, I mean, we all see that Facebook is kind of a bit in decline, or it has less and less users. Some of you don't even use it. I guess it also depends on where you are and your social group, but that's a general tendency. So we use it mainly for links and words and teasers. So I'm just going to show some examples of types of teasers you can do, because I think it's important that for Facebook or Twitter, you don't just summarize the article. You have to like really use it as a kind of bridge to lead people to the article. And it's also, I mean, you also have to take into account the thing that the teaser is up there and then the headline is down there, so how they correlate and stuff. I think you should have that in mind or consider that. This is a type that just, I mean, the headline is like already explains the news, and then the teaser just adds to the news and makes the package complete. I mean, I think for news it makes sense, but I think it's not ideal because you don't feel the need to click on it. You already know what's happening. Here is an example in German, because I didn't find any better one on like Resident Advisor or English music sites. That's different. It's like from a very big German news site. The news is kind of in the headline, but not too much. It says like that the budget of the state is like in minus, or I know that the state has like spent more than it got. And yeah, that's what it says here, that it spent more than it received, the government. So there's a deficit of billions of euros. But I think that builds tension, or it's like, okay, a deficit of billions of euros. It's like, why? I want to know what's behind that. I think for me it works that way. Just building tension. Here is a third type of teaser you can do, which is, I think it's also quite popular, like a commentary. The headline already has the news: Mark Zuckerberg filed Trump's TikTok suspicions in private house meeting, yet it doesn't reveal the whole of it. But then the teaser is just two bros trying to take down TikTok, and it also doesn't have a period. Yeah, I mean, that depends on, I think, the platform and also how you want to position yourself as a magazine. But it's a way you can be funny without like changing the news piece, or like taking seriousness out of the news piece. Next, we're going to talk about audience in social media, because I think social media have the potential to tighten the bond between you and your readers if you use them accordingly. And especially in electronic music journalism, I think that's a valuable quality, because electronic music journalism, I think, has the difference to other types of journalism that as a journalist you're often part of the scene that you're reporting on. You have a tight bond to maybe artists, musicians. You feel like a raver, so the relationship between audience and journalist, it's closer than in mainstream journalism. But also in the light of recent events, having a tight bond to your readers is quite valuable, simply like financially speaking, because we've seen like a rise in subscription models. I mean, this one I think is Crack magazine, Resident Advisor, who were both before dependent from advertising. Now it's they've also introduced a subscription model, and obviously Groove has done an online subscription model for like now a year, I think, 1.5 years. So yeah, it's more important than ever to have your audience feel close, so they pay you for your work. Some ways to like tighten this bond. I mean, I'm just going to touch that superficially, but you can ask your readers about their opinion. I mean, you did that. Gio did that, I think. Was it? Yeah. In the example of the Instagram story, asking readers about their experiences. Then it's obviously another question, what you do with it. You can also, but it's a good way to get feedback. You can also source comments and DMs for topics and hints, which I did in this example, where we reported on a festival going, what's the English word, like going out of business, kind of. And then there were more comments than likes, and there were a lot of people who said, yeah, I was working there and I didn't get my money, or I had a bad experience with that festival as a person who worked there. And I did a bit more in-depth research, and I used that. So I asked people who had written a comment about their experiences, and that was quite a good way of get to people and sources. Then another thing you can do is actively ask for content, and then kind of use this user-generated content. And the most basic example, I mean, is for like mainstream media. I don't know, today's World Dog Day, sends a picture of your dog. But I think a better example is this thing by the New York Times, who did a piece about the Brooklyn Club output and asked the readers to share their favorite memories of the club, and then did like a multimedia piece where there were voice messages from people who had been there. People shared their memories, blurry images from the club, and it was just like a kind of emotional goodbye piece. I can post the link in the chat later on. And now we're gonna and yeah, that's just about a bit of audience and social media. And now we're gonna come to the last part with journalists and social media. And I'm just gonna start with kind of a statement. Be your own brand as a journalist. just like Nike, just do it. Because I think what applies to music magazines or news sites also applies to you, especially as freelance journalists. Or I mean, I don't know if you are a freelance journalist, but I feel that in the music sphere there are a lot of freelance journalists. So being present and active on social media enhances your visibility and gives you a possibility to voice your thoughts and opinion in another way than through your articles. And I mean, as negative as maybe being your own brand sounds, it's just positive to like be seen and be known, because if people know you or see you, then also editors might know you, and if people know what you stand for, you might be less dependent from individual clients, because you're more flexible, or you have maybe a more diverse stream of income, because maybe you not only write, or you also have a podcast, or you wrote a book, or you work as a speaker, or do workshops, or whatever. Just have like 2 examples, but I guess there are many more. Here is a German hip-hop journalist who, I don't know her personally, but I think she seems like a good example, because she was editor at a hip-hop magazine, but now she's a freelance writer and reporter, and she's also a DJ, and now she has a podcast with a German public broadcaster. So what she does is quite diverse, but people know like her character and what she stands for, and she also voices her opinion on social media. And I think it's she like doing German speaking stuff is maybe also a kind of more encouraging example than just people who write or work in English, because obviously if your work is in English, then you have a bigger reach and it's easier to reach a lot of people. Here is another example in English. It's Cherry who has a newsletter and a Patreon. So if you have a lot of readers that really like your work, they might be also paying you individually for your work. So then you're obviously king of not being dependent from individual commissions. So that's the main takeaway. You should be using social media for work. And even if, like, I don't know, having your own newsletter and being on Patreon is not your goal, it's just simply, I think, good to be seen by editors on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook. Also, if you have a website, just that people look you up and they know what you do. Twitter, I think especially, I don't know how it is in other countries, but it feels like a LinkedIn for journalists to me. In journalism school, I think it was even mandatory that everybody at the beginning created a Twitter account, and then we wrote a bio for our Twitter account. So yeah, crafting the internet presence carefully, I think, is not unimportant. And I don't know, doing highlights or putting the piece you're most proud of at the top of your Twitter profile, things like that. Another thing is like what you say on Twitter or social media, or how you like vocalize yourself or are outspoken. I think that's quite an individual thing, but something you should think about. Personally, I'm not a fan of being too outspoken via my social media accounts, because I feel like, especially on Twitter, there can come a quite negative backlash quite quickly, quite aggressively. And at the same time, I think it's also, I'm not personally a fan of just like endorsing things all the time, and I don't know, being like only positive for likes. Or I don't want to be like praising people all the time just that people like me. But you should consider that what you say on there influences how your work is perceived. I mean, depending on what you do, maybe it's great if you have an opinionated online persona. But maybe if you do other things, people might feel like you're biased or want to have like an unbiased writer. I don't know. It depends. But the third thing is artists and social media, because again, what applies to magazines and individual journalists also applies to artists. They want to get noticed, so most of them are active on social media. It's like the attention economy, I believe you already talked about in other sessions. And I think it's just important to consider that can be an upside and a downside, and also take that in consideration when you work, that small artists maybe have the possibility to show their work and show themselves and potentially reach people that are interested in their music. I mean, many producers have been found on SoundCloud, so also especially for like small communities, it has a big potential for them to be seen. But the downside is that it can increase the tendency of like the PR or the public persona being more important than the music itself, which is a thing, I think is a thing that has been criticized probably forever in electronic music. But yeah, I think it's just important to take that into account, or let yourself not be like too impressed by things you see. And yeah, you might say that that's how the business works, or that it's not about the music anymore. I think both are like valid opinions. And yeah, I think now we've like kind of come to an end, and with that I want to open the discussion and ask 2 questions. If I get that. How do you think social media have changed music journalism? And what do you think about the sentence that artists don't need us, we need them, and both of us need Facebook Inc. And Google and Twitter. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Cristina, for this. Yeah, I guess then we will open up the conversation a little bit, and Gustavo, whose camera I think is glitching crazily, but maybe he still wants to.
Hi, thank you, Cristina. Do you think, well, I will say something before. It's more difficult that all the internet shut down, but I don't know, maybe one day Mark Zuckerberg wake up and say, I just made too much money and I will shut down all my social media platforms, so the internet keeps on, but without social media. I think it's more easier than the social media shuts off than the whole internet. So, do you think that music journalists should adapt to all emerging social network platforms? Because if Mark Zuckerberg shut down Facebook, Twitter, Messenger, and other people will create another social media, né? And now, or only does a social network platform used by your audience, or you should encourage your audience to search your content in your website? What do you think that could be the way?
Well, I think it's important that journalism not completely adapts. I think it's important to like keep in mind that all the things the other workshops are about, like interviews, commentary, features, is still like the core of the journalism or the core content, and that social media is more a way of distribution and marketing. I think even if I say that it's important to like put the journalistic content and use the means you have, for example with like Instagram stories or TikTok, it's still more a way of kind of marketing or adding on. But I think an Instagram live report can, I don't know, I'd say it can be done very well, but I don't think it substitutes the well-written in-depth article that's on the site. But also I think, as the same with music, as there's so much floating around there, it's important because you can't just expect people like to find you or to find your site.
Yeah, can I take the word again?
Yeah.
I ask you because for me, the current music journalism is being affected by the social media, because when you put it as an examples how the media use the posts as a substitute of the articles that they publish in the website, is a signal. It's a signal that they want to be read independent of it is in the social media platform, of independent if it is in the website, because the advertising, it could be sell just for social media or specifically to the website. But I ask you too that if music journalists should to adapt to emergency social media networks, because for example, I am almost 30 years. I am young, but I don't use TikTok, and I am don't attracted by use TikTok. And I am sure that people that have been participating in this workshop, they are not attracted. They are old ravers, and they are not attracted to use TikTok or use Instagram or use Instagram Live. And I'm not talking about accessibility, because it's another thing. When you create content to Instagram Live or Facebook Live, you are assuming that the people that your audience have the internet, have the package of social media, all these things that you think that I just set it up. So I ask it because I don't know. I perceive that the publications are more and more affected by the social network dynamics.
Mm. Well, I think it's I think like adapting to that thing, or I mean, if you, for example, using TikTok, is just for journalists itself. I think it's kind of an opportunity, like to try out new. Oh, okay. I'm just gonna. Do you see my screen still? You do, right? So I'm gonna stop it. I think it's just an opportunity to try new formats and to like get creative, but that's also what I meant with like know your audience. If you think it doesn't make sense for you, and I think in electronic music that can very well be, because the audience is like old ravers or like 25 plus, or people who are very critical of social media or dance challenges and stuff, then you don't need to. But I mean, it's also a question how many resources you put into it. If you have like one person just trying it, I think there's no big harm, and there can come like inspiration out of it. But obviously, if you, I don't know, invest like a whole team and lots of money, then you have to like very well know ahead what you want to get out of it. Has that kind of asked you a question? Answered? Oh,
Do I go for something?
yeah.
I just wanted you to sort of touch upon paid promotions on social media, and what strategies have you tried for boosting posts, advantages, disadvantages with that, especially Facebook, Instagram, obviously, because that's the predominant ones.
I think we haven't used that at all, or at least I have never done a paid promotion for Groove. That was mainly from the very critical stance Christopher has of, or I think it was.
No. We just never got budget for that.
Well, I thought it was because we never did that because we didn't want to give money to Facebook and stuff, and then I think that's quite a why I think that standpoint is quite okay. So I never questioned that.
No, maybe I can explain that. So yeah, basically there was never really any money. I think back when we used to be, because I used to be the online editor, so I was also taking care of social media, which I had a part-time job and I was running the whole thing alone. You can tell, like, if you go back, like, I don't know, like 4 years into Groove Magazine's Instagram account or whatever, you can see that I was not doing a very great job at it because I couldn't. But yeah, I think we did, like, the only promotions that we did was back in print, in the print age, when we were trying to boost the magazine. And yeah, we did some filtering, like, obviously, like, because it's a German language magazine, the language should be German, and like all these like things, and like we try to target especially bigger urban areas in Germany geographically, because you know, where there's a city, there's usually some clubs, and there's usually people who want to know more about club scene, right? So all of that, yeah, well, I guess I couldn't tell you much more than I think like the obvious. When it comes to that, I also have worked with festivals as an editor or writer and whatever, and we did more specific targeting there. Generally speaking, I am incredibly critical of it. Of doing that, because basically I think, and this circles back a little bit on one of the two questions that Cristina has posed for us, what changed with the advent of social media in music journalism, is that we just very openly greeted social media as like this great distribution channel. But in some kind of way, social media now has become like the main competitor for us, right? That one example that Christina showed, where this German television show, Tagesschau, basically ran a whole news on Instagram. Like, you had a headline in the picture, and then the caption basically was the whole article. Why do they do that? They can only do that because it's publicly funded. So they don't have to earn money with their reporting. Yeah, exactly that. Thank you. They don't have to earn money with their reporting, but for like a commercial magazine, it wouldn't make sense to just give content like that away for free, right? Because there, the incentive would be to kind of use social media as Christina has called it an entry point. So yeah, but still, like, we just have to compare and compete with social media, and obviously like throwing money into that in order to do that will only make things worse, in my opinion, because also you have to depend on the internal structure of those platforms like Facebook, and who will, once you throw in some money, and that's definitely something that I noticed, will make your other posts that you do not pay for perform much worse suddenly. So like, again, like, you're there and like you think, okay, like this one was really good because I paid for it, and the other ones, like, suddenly like nobody sees them, so I should invest more in that, which is insane to me. I mean, just downright insane. And which is why I would be interested in, if anyone here can think of maybe other models of reaching and building and communicating with an audience. Like I said, or like Max already said, there's a newsletter for Groove. With Specs, we tried to create an app, which was terribly done, but still, from what I could see was that a lot of people actually used that app. And because that was like a channel that was like very, very direct, and also that provided a lot more context, obviously, if you just like open the website as sort of like a separate app. And I'm much more interested in finding solutions like that, rather than relying and like perfecting my social media performance, both as a freelance journalist and also as a like former, in that case, editor as a magazine. Because yeah, our dependence on those platforms, I think it's not doing us so well. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. What do other people think? Is there maybe because like a lot of it is like regionally specific. Obviously, like we have someone here from China. I think like the whole like Operation Golden Shield and whatever like has a very different impact on what we can see in Central Europe or North America or whatever. So I would be interested in hearing other perspectives on that. Anyone?
I mean, in India, for example, like we were actually looking into getting into TikTok as well, but before it got banned. It got banned recently by the government. But we were looking at it because, you know, here it's like the scene is very nascent. So like not everybody knows what's out there. They might be interested in this music, but still are not in on the scene. So it's like TikTok wasn't exactly, we weren't going there because our audience wasn't there, because it wasn't, but because there might be a new audience that might enjoy. So we sort of wanted to experiment with that. So that's what we've been doing with social media. But in terms of like paid promotion, I know that I think it's Mixmag or something I heard from somewhere that they like pretty much boost almost all of their posts, and we've also like tried it on some. But again, that's why I asked the question, because we don't really have a good opinion about that.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that a lot of the major publications use it, like Resident Advisor, Mixmag, and all these. But I don't really think anyone really likes doing it. Obviously, I mean, just recently I've again like seen like a lot of examples of stuff that's been being boosted, and it just kind of attracts like, I don't know, like thousands of people from the other side of the world who are liking this post, but like no other interaction is happening. Like those like weird like sort of like glitchy things that sometimes happen when you throw money on something, and just Facebook decides to deliver it to like an audience that definitely is not interested, but still like lifts a thumb up for it, which almost has like this like weird sort of negative consequence if I see it as a user, and I'm like, okay, yeah, like this is like something about like a festival like happening in France and whatever. Why is like, I don't know, like why is there like 1,000 Indonesian people liking this post, right? You know, so I don't know. Yeah, it's just, yeah, it's very, very curious, like the whole dynamic of that. But yeah, like I said, as much as like the major publications definitely all have to rely on it at some point, I think nobody really likes it. And yeah, I think there's also a lot of like third-party people who kind of like want in on that. Like I had that as an editor with a lot of festivals, with a lot of like brands that were advertising in Groove, that they wanted to boost, basically use our channels, but like boost like posts on Facebook and Instagram and whatnot. So we would basically like serve as just like, I don't know, like the like voice with a little bit of integrity to like, you know, like basically do promotion for them, but they would give us the money for that. And then also is pretty weird, because then, I mean, yeah, you reach like a certain more expanded audience, but only with stuff that you're actually not really behind. And it's just, yeah, it's tricky. I don't know.
I mean, that shows that it's just kind of a marketing channel where you can do editorial stuff, but yeah, it's important not to forget that it's not like the core of what you do. But I think it's a fine line. I mean, I think I'm less, I'm in theory, I'm also critical of it, but in practice, I'm less critical of it than Christopher, because I just see it like as a tool, or how I think you can use it. But yeah, it's a fine balance.
Yeah, which brings me, maybe, I don't know, like, does anyone like want to chime in on how their experience as a freelancer is shaped by that? Because I mean, I know, for example, that there's a lot of people who sometimes get commissioned work because the whole LinkedIn as Twitter effect. Like, can someone say anything about that? Like, which role does it play as your in your regular work, in your daily work?
I guess I can say something about this because it's something that I struggle with a lot, and I'm always curious to hear also how it compares to other people's experience, because I'm a very private person, but as a freelancer, your presence on the web is part of your business. And so I think so far it's been after like a couple years of from resistance and being really critical of it to kind of just embracing the model of finding the balance between being professional. I'm on Twitter and Instagram, and I don't have a professional account versus personal account. I use both as kind of conflated, but it's kind of, I'm very conscious about having a kind of so-called brand where I do curate and voice things in ways that I hope that when magazines or editors like Google me or something, they'll have a sense of what my writing voice is or what my thinking is. And also maybe like things that I'm not able to get commissioned to write about, I will maybe try to incorporate that. And so hopefully that will open people's or commissioning editors' minds about, you know, what are possible out there. And it's good for building relationships, especially in like music and entertainment and culture where people are very active online and opinionated. So that's how I use it.
Yeah, I think it's the same for me. I mean, I used to be incredibly active on Twitter, and then I completely dropped out at some point because I really fucking hated it that basically we're all doing free labor for a platform, first of all, and that secondly, there was this just weird dynamic where I knew kind of like, okay, if I'm doing this now, this will like perform well or whatever. Like, or if I voice this sort of opinion, like people will like that. So I got totally caught up in this like very economic structure of it. So at some point I just decided to completely drop out, and basically my Twitter, for example, is these days it's pretty much only just me just like sharing my work, because which is essentially the same, you know, I just use it to promote myself, but in a weird and twisted way. I think it's more honest that way than as if I would just write down whatever I'm thinking right now, because I always do that with like a sort of like economic incentive in the back of my head, and that just was like kind of weird. So I kind of tried to like get out of it. And I mean, I think maybe I'm also in a privileged position because like I don't really have to rely on social media so much, because I've been in this business for like 10 years now. I know people, and people will just call me or write me an email, because also that still exists when they need me for something. But yeah, I don't know. I just kind of try to get the hell out of there to some extent, but also for me it's of course impossible, and I won't even like, of course I'm super critical of the underlying structures, but I'm not generally opposed to the many advantages that social media definitely have, which is that, yeah, like new forms of organization happening, new magazines that were basically being formed because like some people got to know each other on Twitter and whatever. So like that definitely has this like upside to it, I would say. Yeah, but I can totally understand what you're saying, Jamie. It's just yeah, it's just really weird to like have this sort of like performative doppelganger sort of like a persona that you have to, you know, well, put out there in order to, you know, market yourself, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe some input, and maybe I can jump in here, because I think, I don't know if you listened to the talk by Christoph about pitching last week, but we had this kind of discussion of getting in touch with people via social media, and I think that is what I find really like the approachability is so much lower. Like you can just, if you follow somebody on Instagram and you just send a heart to their story or something, I think it's so much easier to approach people. Which is what I use it for a lot. I mean, I totally get this like self-curation, and it feels weird if it's not really something that's very natural to you. And also, like if you just on Instagram post a picture of your article, it's not really what the platform's made for. Like you can usually see that they are not really performing that well because people want to see faces and pretty pictures and all that. So just to go up to that, I think for that it's really important. And that's also the way I use it. And also, like, of course, on the one hand, you have this thing of presenting yourself and curating and stuff. But on the other hand, I feel like, especially with recent discussions, I think Instagram has really changed in the last couple of months, at least in my feed, when everything about Black Lives Matter was becoming so big. That really so many things were shared and so much information was shared via the story function. And I feel like it was really a good way to broaden your own horizon on other feeds. Like people are really trying to get out of their own bubble. And I don't know, it was, for me, it was really helpful to get a wider opinion on things, like if you follow those people. So that's what I also use it for my own research in a way.
I just want to jump on something that Laura mentioned. I think it's interesting that I'd like to keep in mind or look at like how the environment on each platform is, because I also saw that there was a lot more political content and political opinions on Instagram, and I feel like it's kind of safer than on Twitter, so that it's in a way interesting, or it's like and what I said about like voicing your own opinion, to me personally, it feels safer to do that on Instagram, because on Twitter you get a troll from somewhere or a dark corner coming out. Yeah, and I also on what Jaime said, wanted to know that I just throw in that I saw that a journalist friend of mine recently opened up a second account as a like professional account, and I think younger people already have that a lot, like the dark Instagram, which is very private, and a more public one. But I think that can also be a way, if you don't feel too comfortable like mixing up your private and your professional life. And it also maybe helps if you write people who you want to interview on Instagram, kind of that they have like this professional persona.
Yeah, can I ask you, maybe, because I wonder, I always like, it's so tricky about this private and like a private account and the public account, because I mean, especially for us who post about or who write about the stuff they do in their free time anyways, like you go to concert as a private person, but you also like are you ever a private person in this job of being a music journalist? And how do you think it's authentic if I just do like have a friend's account where I post all my clubby stuff and my I don't know, you know, like, or do you think that belongs into the professional account in a way as well, to make my brand more authentic as a professional raver, so to speak?
Is that to me the question? I think it depends on what you want people to see. I mean, I think if you want to like show a video of a concert or thing where you're having fun and it fits, I mean, that's cool. But if you don't want to maybe everybody to see because your friends are completely blackout drunk on it, I think it's more what I saw is I would, for me personally, I would do this difference between private and public, more of like what I think is embarrassing out in the public or what isn't, less thinking about that brand, I think.
Can I say something?
Sure.
Thank you. I don't know if you think the same, but for me, there is a transversal line, which is the education of the public. We, as a music journalist, are constantly setting and validating and feedbacking the normality. And so when I mean, the current system exists because we work in that system. The current effects on music journalism exist because we work with that. So when you answer, it depends what do you want with your public. I don't know if there is clear this line that we are constantly for educating public. We are constantly saying them how to catch information, how to find information, how to consume music, how to consume internet. So do you think that in some point we can, I don't know if boycott is the word, but do you think that in some point we can tell Facebook and Instagram that we want to compete for the quality of the content and not for the amount of the boost that are you paying? Do you think that it is possible as a front of music journalists around the world that we don't have the money to pay for what we write?
May I chime in on this? Because that has always been a dream of mine, that all publishers collectively leave Facebook. And I tried actually to argue with people on the team while I was an online editor to make exactly that happen with Groove in order to set an example. Because yeah, I mean, the problem that we have is that we were like just given this platform and we just took it for granted and was like, oh, yeah, it's free and always will be, right? It says every time you log in, it's free and it will always be. That was a lie. And now we're here, and suddenly like this infrastructure that like was so useful to us is holding us hostage in some kind of way, right? So yeah, I was kind of like dreaming about making something happen like that. What you're describing, to basically, yeah, leave behind that. And there have been cases of, for example, publishing houses who left Facebook, but only for a while, because then just capitalist realism kicks in and people will just come back because they know like, okay, yeah, like Cristina said in the beginning, like so many people really access your stuff through social media. So basically, yeah, like that also translate into like, yeah, well, less income, right? As a magazine, because you need people to come on your page and do all that. But yeah, yeah, no, it's something like a sort of like general strike, if you want to call it that. I think that is something that we should strive for. Or at least we should think about maybe taking these infrastructures out of the hands of those who profit from it the most and maybe putting it into the people's hands instead. So like collective ownership, like keep thinking about like that sort of like, which is, I know it's all very utopian in some kind of way, but like that's something that like I would like to discuss. I mean, there have been people who like Nick Trinicek, who wrote Platform Capitalism, very good book, for example, proposed to nationalize Google. And it's an insane sort of idea in many ways, but why not think about it? Why not discuss it? And on the other hand, I think what would be great is maybe for the media as a whole to kind of get together and think about maybe trying to build their own infrastructures. Because a huge problem that I think the media has, and not just music journalism, but all others have, is that they kind of just relied on like external structures, which was like, in print days, it was like distribution, and now it's like social media and stuff like that. But why don't we talk about trying to like create our own infrastructures? Why don't we talk about like, okay, can we actually form networks that are only for media consumption and the exchange between different media? Like, why is that not a possibility? Like, it should be, right? So I'm thinking about that. But yeah, in the meanwhile, I don't know, like general strike or exodus of some sorts. I think that's a very charming idea, at least. Yeah. I don't know if that answers your question, but okay, cool.
I just want to say something to that, or also give a question back to Gustavo, because I think, I mean, what enables you to do that is obviously if you have your readership for, I mean, so having a subscription-based model is, I think, in the end strives towards that, to like independence from distributors. I mean, then you just have to like make people notice what they're paying for, but you're not relying on them to like finding your stuff or clicking on your stuff. And I mean, I think it's also the same for individual journalists. If you have your income secured through, I don't know, being an editor or having a fixed commission, then obviously you're less dependent from that visibility. You can like sit in your office and do your stuff. But what I think was from your question, or I would just want to get clear if you meant that as a journalist you're never a private person, or it sounded like you meant that we're like always educating, like you can never be that private self.
No. I just asked because when we are working as we work, the reader, the audience are consuming our work in the way that we made it. So if we made music journalism based in social media dynamics, we are telling to the audience, hey, this is the way that you have to consume electronic scene information. This is the way that you have to know about this party, about this label, about this and that. I mean, for me, there is a clear transversal line in information of publics, in public formations. I don't know how to say it in the in how the people that are more than the new generations, how they get into, which is the entry for them. For us, it wasn't the social media. We consume electronic music before social media, and this and for example, there are guys that romanticize a lot the past. They say that I am, and they are very firm and say that the past times were better. I don't think so, but I don't know. I want to think that the people, because the push of the journalist, will demand better content, will demand to the DJs better music, will demand to the labels more exploring of new faces, of new names, of new skin colors, of new faces, of new sexual. You know, when you say, oh, I think this Instagram is too much male, it's too much white, I think, well, this is a normal that the audience is keeping in mind, you know. So I don't know. I just ask you because for me, journalism is a way of educate people. It's a way. Is in my country we say that is the fourth power. Is the contra power. You know, is the way that we say the people we can change the world, dancing and partying. You know.
Yeah, I think you mentioned a very interesting thing of what you said. Just thought about that. I mean, electronic music journalism has the advantage then that you don't need to get the people via social media, because there's a real place where where you can get them, like the club. And I think that's also so why it's so important that there are these local scenes, because it's just where you get in and where you see people in real life, not depending on their social media stats or everything, like your local residents and local artists. But yeah, I think it's an interesting point you made with like educating people through what you do and what means you use.
I don't want to sound colonial in the mean of I have the form to, you have to listen to music. It's always, if you get more diversity people in your deconstruction process, you will have a more effective emancipate process. If you are the same white guys doing the stuff, you always will see the Instagram with white guys doing the stuff. If you want to diversify, you want to diversify the house, and so also, so that's why I'm telling this. I'm not telling that there is one way to do the things.
Actually, I think it's really interesting point, because I think that's where the like social media professional is like such a interesting job. It's not that just because you're on Instagram, like you know how to do Instagram reporting, because this space, especially for music journalism, it's like so the critical space is so small on like Instagram, for example. Like everybody has like 5 seconds attention span for whatever you put out. And so I think the thing I notice for something I'm thinking about, like, for example, like people are interested in like the China scene, but I think it takes a lot of commitment to, like, if I go to the club, there are like 5 acts. Like, do I post and maybe 3 of them are interesting. Like, do I post all of them, like a little clip of all of them on my story and maybe say a few words about it? But like that feels really stupid to do it at the moment because you're also like in the club and it's just not a good environment to just do that. But what about the other 2 that you leave out? Like, do you build a brand based on your like critical abilities to review a night in the club, or do you like build a brand based on just exposing everybody to like everything and let them decide, you know, what they like, and maybe they'll look it up? And but then that just creates a lot of noise in that sense, and my Instagram story will be like, you know, 50 dots on top that nobody ever wants to like click through. And so it's like this very weird balance of like, you never know what the return of your investment is, and you don't really have a critical like way to gauge what's effective, what's not. You can just keep throwing content out and like maybe hope that people's minds will expand. And that feels very futile as a one person operation that, you know, and yeah, like Christopher said, you're just also at the same time building volume and making money for these platforms, and to what end? So, but that's just speaking specifically to like the criticism space, and for something like a protest reportage or like a new club opening or something, I think that's a different kind of reporting.
Yeah, what I find really interesting is that point of like, okay, yeah, you can just like do this and just like, I don't know, like, yeah, like bang out like so many Instagram stories, and you don't really know what the ROI is. Because I'm also like linked to what Gustavo said. I think it's because I started with like, well, writing for online mags, but also for print mags, you know, and in a weird and twisted way, even though print is so limited also physically, I think print definitely had the advantage, or has, it's still around a little bit, has the advantage of just confronting people more with stuff that they do not know, and them more being receptive to it, because like in that very moment, like if you just, I don't know, like even if you just sit on a toilet, or if you sit on a train or in an airplane and you just have a magazine with you and nothing else to read, and you just like might flip through the pages, and then yeah, there is this piece about like this like whatever, like really obscure kind of music. I think you're more likely to read it than as if you would just like sit with your smartphone anywhere and just, you know, like just go through a Facebook. So I think even though print, like it was always also like a very like much like a shot in the dark, and you didn't have any real numbers to support like your theory of like, okay, yeah, this may be interesting, because you didn't know. You knew like the number of like the circulation or whatever, and that was pretty much it. But you wouldn't really know like who reads what article and why. And but in a very twisted sense, I think that was also the limitations of print in comparison to social media also pose like some like real advantages, which is like people just being more open to being like confronted with something that maybe they didn't even know they would be interested in, but just checking it out, which I think is very, very unlikely in social media, and which is why you work with like a lot of like headlines that are sensationalist and stuff like that, and or yeah, just like try to be like an interesting person, which is like puts an immense pressure on you as well. Try to be an interesting person, so in order to like basically sell like maybe interesting story to people, and that also makes weird stuff with individuals, I think. Yeah.
I think that the problem you mentioned with like people not coming across things, I mean, is obviously, I think, a problem of online journalism generally. Like, how do you make a website that's just as where you like come across things as you come across in print? But obviously, social media takes it to an extreme, and yeah, which also in regard to like TikTok, I'm thinking now is even more extreme, because it leaves things in the hands of the algorithm, and if the algorithm is as extreme as I think TikTok's, it's just shows you only what you like.
Yeah, and what I find interesting is the recent trend for music journalists doing newsletters. Like you've highlighted Sherry Who's Water and Music, which is absolutely crucial newsletter for news about the music business, I would say. We have David Turner, who does Penny Fractions, who approaches streaming and the streaming economy from a more leftist perspective, which is like brilliant, very nice person. We have Sean Ronaldo, Todd Burns, who's talking more about music journalism in general, where Sean Ronaldo uses his newsletter as more like, okay, like opinion pieces, like churning out opinion pieces. All of these people in some kind of way return to like very old school format, I think, and it's also very personality based, so it kind of pays its dues to like this new attention economy and this new like neoliberal sort of thinking of like the entrepreneurial self. But at the same time, I think what all those people are doing is pretty amazing, because like Cherry Hoon, David Turner especially, like they're really going in deep, and they use the resources that they are being given by their audience for very great purposes, I think. And that's very interesting that, yeah, newsletters are a thing again. I mean, it may be my age bracket, or just maybe people who come from media and are just so oversaturated by like the constant influx of news and whatever. So it's like easier to like, okay, once a week I get a newsletter, and I'm just gonna read that, instead of just like, you know, like clicking here and like faving that and like retweeting this. But I think that's a very interesting trend. Yeah, uh, that was it.
Yeah, I think it's an important trend to consider, and also, I mean, bigger news publications have also noticed that, and even they try to like focus on the personal voice of an editor, even if they work at a big brand where you think you wouldn't need that. So yeah, but I think you also touched upon the subject of newsletters in other sessions, right?
Yes, yeah, sorry. Because Groove has a newsletter, we also, when at Specs, we also tried to like install like a newsletter, and it went okay. Actually went okay. And I personally appreciate it. I don't know what the others like. Does anyone else here consume newsletters? Like, what do you think about that? Because I think it's really great, because it precisely just gives me exactly what is lacking otherwise, which is like just bundled information. And from there on, I have this like sort of like social media experience of like being able to jump to like a different different things, but it's just so much more easy to consume. I don't know, like maybe someone else. I think Arman and Gustavo wanted to say something.
Yeah, no, I mean, since like the lockdown and COVID-19, feel like so much content just went online all at once that I had kind of shut down and kind of went back to newsletters. And I mean, I found out about this program from Sean Ronaldo's newsletter. So, you know, so like people are sort of going back to it and all that, you know.
Well, I mentioned WhatsApp when Cristina asked for which social media networks we used, because where is the underground of social media, or where is the underground of the internet in these times? I think that is between WhatsApp, Telegram, and these newsletters that are sent directly to a list of people that is, I don't know, 1,000, I don't know how many people, but maybe if you can get the mail to send a newsletter in a MailChimp, you can get the number of the phone and send this newsletter directly by Telegram or WhatsApp as in sometimes function for us. In Guatemala, we made an secret party in a sótano. I can't remember how do you say and on, excuse me.
A basement, or?
Yeah, in a basement, and we just sent the direction to the people who, I don't know, were more closely to us, and because that we felt comfortable to ask them number and send them direction. I think this is very basic to Europe or another scenes more bigger, but for us were interesting to experiment with another channels, because when you think we are always searching for talking in bigger and bigger channels, but these networks, these little networks sometimes works as a underground of the social media, or as a more effective way to tell things to a specific audiences, because now the question is, how do you don't lose your content in the over information era, because we are living an over information era, and we are all participating in this ecosystem where in these times wins who pays more. So how we can change this ecosystem at the end of the time.
Yeah, those are very great, but hard to answer questions, I think, for now, aren't they? But yeah, I mean, like those are the questions I think that we have to ask ourselves, like if we talk about especially regional and underground reporting, right?
Yeah, it was more a commentary, not a question. Just was a.
So you're being that person.
No, I was just gonna make one comment, because like when Gustavo mentioned those Telegram groups targeted at one specific audience, in my mind I suddenly just had like conspiracy theorists and stuff. So I think there's also kind of a big danger in one person becoming their own medium without any editorial staff having a look of what they are sending out to their audience. So I think we still, even if that's great, and I mean the newsletters we are putting in here are all very well known journalists and stuff, they do a good job, but still I'm also pretty critical if a magazine becomes just one person who becomes their own medium, and yeah, the public doesn't really know what's going on in those networks. I mean, it's underground for us, but on the other hand, it can be misused for the wrong purposes as well. That's just what I wanted to say.
Sorry.
Sure.
Yeah, thanks. I think what happens in Mexico City with these newsletters on Telegram channels, as Gustavo says, is because for me, I like more to follow these newsletters or Telegram channels because it's from someone I can trust and who may not have a brand behind. And it becomes a group conversation like, oh, she posts something, I think I read this and I think she will like it. Because when you get the statistics of readers of a big medium with a lot of followers, the surprise is that the readers are very few. And what brands are looking for are the majority of followers, not the content, at last and here in Mexico City. And for that, now we exist a lot of newsletters on Telegram channels to help us each other. Also, Twitter or Instagram helps to know us as a freelance workers, not to get a job, but another music worker, and I think it's important of these underground channels or not editorial channel.
Yeah, definitely the community aspect and connecting with like-minded people. That's of course very important and good development, that we can just find like-minded people so easily. Yeah, I think we are almost at the end, right? I mean, it's almost 3 o'clock. I don't want to take the word away from you. Cristina, you want to add something or?
No, well, no, just to the last point, I think that community thing is also a big thing. I mean, there were many topics I think I did not touch or only superficially. So I think the discussion was now really cool because it brought up a lot of other topics.
Yeah, thank you so much for your input. Still, I mean, it was really interesting to get from you, and I'm happy we could include this topic because it's so important. yeah, I mean, let's wrap it up. Thanks everybody for joining. If you have any more comments, questions, something comes up, you can always email. Yeah, I think Christopher sent you the link of the newsletters that we talked about, or that we think are important. If you have any input on that, I'd be grateful to get some stuff. I mean, if it's not in English, I might probably not be able to read it, but still be cool if you feel like sharing stuff that you are interested in. And yeah, apart from that, it's going to be Christopher tomorrow, right? About
I'm afraid so, yeah. I'll be talking about conflicts of interests, which is something that we've picked, or that we touched upon many times throughout this time. So I do have a modest proposal for solving some issues, I think, and I'm super interested in hearing what everyone else has to say, because I just made it up on Saturday night with a bottle of wine next to me. So let's see how it holds up. But yeah, conflicts of interests. Very broad topic. But yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing from all of you. What do you think about my little fantasy? And yeah, no, that's it. And thank you very much. Thank you very much, Cristina, for taking the time.
Thank you for asking me. It was really cool to be able to participate.
Thank you. All right, then. Bye-bye. See you
Bye-bye.
tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
Bye.
Machst du den Livestream noch aus?